Guys, when you get the script for this initially and you see Dracula in the title, is there kind of a moment where you go, oh no, not another vampire movie?
Yes. Yes, and then you pick the script up, and I think both of us had the same reaction. You know, it wasn't another Dracula movie. It's the story that no one really knows about. It's the actual story of the real human that walked this earth in the 1400s, who inspired the whole story in the first place, and it's about his journey. And so, for me, it was a refreshing take on something that you wouldn't necessarily know about.
That real sort of historical context, that, you know, this real guy sort of gives it a lot of weight, doesn't it? Did it feel like that for you, that it kind of gave it a bit more kudos?
Yeah, kudos and just reality and realism. You know, you're dealing with a human, and you're dealing with this man's journey, and not that he was just known as Vlad the Impaler. You know, he was a successful leader of his people, respected by his people, was also a very loving husband and a doting father to his boy. And these things are what really sort of we anchor the storyline on, you know, about the love that he has for his wife, Morena, and what he will do what he will sacrifice to safeguard them.
As the sort of solitary woman in the film, it's quite a relief that you're not sort of that sexually repressed sort of damsel in distress. I mean, was it important to you that she was a bit more layered than that?
No, it was something that really attracted me to the project, is that I got to just kind of kiss Luke for like a good couple of days straight.
Poor you.
So I was like, you know what, I'm okay with this, and I'm happy to sign on to the project. No, but yeah, I think that was something that I loved about the film, is there's this really classic love story at the heart of it. And again, it's not about, you know, a forbidden love. It's about a love that we celebrate and that we sacrifice for. And it was those kinds of questions that really made me interested in the character and the script.
It's quite a sweeping epic of a movie. I mean, there's a lot going on. The scale of it is massive. Was the shoot kind of really long and intense, or was it quite grueling, or?
It was all of those things and more, yeah. I mean, it was full on. It was we had a big story to tell, and there was huge location shots. You know, we transformed mountaintops into these huge battle sequences, and for me, physically, it was the most demanding thing I've ever done to date. You know, I was training an awful lot, and these huge fight sequences, which took months to learn. I was rehearsing and learning as we were shooting. On weekends, I would be in the stunt hangar with the stunt team, you know. So there was, yeah, it was very demanding, but it's very rewarding to see the finished, you know, product. We were very.
I remember on my first day of shooting, we shot the injurious handoff scene, and it was a big emotional day. We actually ended up shooting that scene over 3 days, and at the end of the first day, I was just exhausted. We had been, you know, running around, and the emotions are very intense. And the very last shot that they did on that day was the wide of the carriage pulling up, silhouetted in the background against the night sky. And I remember at the end of the day kind of running up to the monitor and looking at the playback of that last shot and thinking, oh, okay, it's going to be really hard, but it's really going to be worth it.
What was it like being in Belfast in Northern Ireland? Because it's so beautiful up there. I mean, did it add to the experience?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it there. I had the best time. An amazing city. Brilliant people. So it's a fun place to live for. I lived there for 5 months altogether. But
and I think, you know, that when you think of Dracula, when you think of that story, there's something so atmospheric about it. And I really can't imagine another country to shoot this film in, because there's just something so magical and eerie about Ireland, and about the weather and how it changes, and how it just, you know, there's just so much history in those forests and on top of those mountains, and they really just add to the visual image of the film.
We've got an Irish director as well, Gary Shore. It's his first feature film. He didn't kind of make things easy for himself tackling something of this scale. How was he? How did he approach the project? Was he fun to work with?
Yeah, I mean, I'd known Gary for about a year before we started the movie, so there was I had a lot of conversations with him over Skype and in LA and in London, and so by the time we got to actually settle in Belfast, I sort of understood his way, his manner, and he's a very quiet-spoken man. But when he's very clear about what he wants and how he wants it, and you know, it was fun watching him sort of take the reins of such a huge project for a first-time director. It's a massive demand and ask, and he did an extraordinary job. He did really, you know, he wasn't daunted by what he had to do. And it was interesting to work with somebody like that, because he was listening as much as I was listening to him. You know, it was a very collaborative experience.
Would you work with him again? Is there scope for more?
Yeah, I'd definitely work with him again. Yeah. Can't say anything else, but yeah.
You're not going to say no.
No, I think, every director is different, and there's something very kind of meticulous about Gary's brain and the way that he sees things and thinks of things, and he pays attention to detail, and he's very kind of, I don't want to say OCD, but like kind of OCD.
Most directors, I'd say, are slightly OCD.
Yeah, but he has this very kind of keen sense of like how everything is going to look in the mise en scene of the film, and that was really interesting to see him kind of work that way. And then, of course, when you watch the finished product of the film and you see all of the different layers of everything that had to go into it, and you understand kind of why, and that was kind of a cool thing for me to see full circle.
I totally agree with what you say. Yeah,
it's all worked out.
Yeah, no, but it is, because there's a lot of amazing visual moments which only Gary and the digital department and art department would have created, and so we had to build trust him many times on what was happening around us or how it was going to look, because it's very difficult sometimes when there is nothing. It's just green screen and.
And it
to imagine. But,
it looks amazing.
I'm fortunate enough to have experienced that idea of being on a set with nothing around and like having to imagine everything. So it was, but it is amazing when you finally see the finished product and see how breathtaking some of those moments are. So,
guys, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Capital, but as soon as you leave Dublin, everybody says Cork is the real capital.
Really?
No, I'm slightly biased in that sense.
I think
but,
so.
Yeah.
Sorry guys, just going to step in for 2 seconds. Good to go, yeah?
Yeah.
Yep.
And everyone rolling, and we're away.
Guys, congratulations on the movie. Really, really enjoyed it. Luke, can I just start with you? What did you eat? Because you were ripped for Dracula Untold. Seriously, did you eat The Rock or Mr. Muscle or what?
it was more about what I didn't eat.
Right.
Was more important than what I actually did eat. It was this. Yeah, there was a sacrifice in the character's journey, and there was a sacrifice in the actor who's playing the character. His journey was all about sacrificing the good things in life.
Right.
The nice, tasty food with sauces and chips and maybe wash it down with a pint of lager. None of those things happened for me. I had to be really strict. I had to be very, very strict with my diet and how much I was taking in with food and supplementing it with, helping the muscles, renew protein, all the boring stuff that goes on when you have to play a role like this. But, now I can look back and think, yeah, did it.
Guys, you said like the movie is about sacrifice. So just to jump on the sacrifice thing, Sarah, what was the one thing that you've kind of sacrificed personally in the last while? Not necessarily for Dracula Untold, but in the last while. What's a big sacrifice that you've made?
Ooh, I think, I love my job so much, and I think it's a really interesting kind of time for filmmaking, because films, are being made all over the world. So I travel so much, so I'm never home. So that's the one thing that you kind of sacrifice as an actor, is you're on the road and you're traveling constantly. But, that can also be one of the great and beautiful things about this profession too, is that you travel around the world, you get the opportunity to live somewhere new, make friends who are locals, understand the lifestyle there, and it's something really special and it's kind of a way of traveling that I love, is living somewhere new and actually being a part of the day-to-day.
And there's a good lifestyle in the north of Ireland as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, party lifestyle. Similar to the Welsh lifestyle.
Similar, very similar. Yeah. No, I mean, Belfast is a wonderful place.
Yeah.
Really, really fun city. Great restaurants, amazing bars, great people. It was a good time.
Luke, for you, on the physical side of it, what was the most taxing thing? Because not only are you swinging a sword, you're swinging arms and legs and everything else. So was there any of the physical side quite challenging for you? Or what did you do to prepare for that side of it?
Well, there was a lot of training before the film began. I was there for like a month before we began shooting and training with my trainer and with the stunt team and the stunt coordinator. There was a lot to do. There was huge fight sequences in the film, lots of stunt trickery that I had to learn, and really enjoyable. That's all I had to do. I had to just head down and just get on with the job at hand. And nothing else really distracted me from what I had to do, and I did it for 4.5 months.
Can you bring any of those other skills now to everyday life from here on in?
I mean, I always go to the gym, but I do it for myself. I
Right.
don't have somebody breathing down my neck telling me to, you can't eat that, or you can't drink that, or you have to turn up here and wake up, let's go to the gym. I do it for myself. But it's nice to relax anyway when you're not doing a movie.
Sure.
You've got to live your life.
Did you guys take anything from the set? Because there was some really authentic looking props and set pieces. Did you guys get anything, take anything home?
I don't know if I took anything.
I did.
You took it. You
Take it or steal
go
it?
to his house and it's like,
I stole a
oh,
couple of
Dracula.
things. Got given another few things. There's a scene in the film where I'm lying on a huge mound of coins which have my face on them. They printed 500,000 of them.
I want one of those.
You don't have any of those?
I don't have any of
I've got
those.
hundreds. I'll
Really?
send you a couple.
Yeah.
So I took a few of those, and they made them in pewter to begin with, and they are beautiful.
Wow.
So I got a few of those, and then they gave me my sword, which
Very cool.
felt like it, should be on my wall. It's a very important part of his character. It has this amazing bronze gilt dragon head, which is the
Really cool.
It's a beautiful piece of
Brilliant.
weaponry.
That's obviously blunt, yeah.
Blunt, but if you hit yourself, if you hit you hard enough, you'd hurt yourself.
Brilliant stuff. Guys, what's next for you? Sarah, you're going down the royal path next, are you, with a girls' night out?
Yeah, I am. I shot a film earlier in the year called Girls' Night Out. It's about Princess Margaret and Princess Elizabeth on VE night, celebrating amongst the people. And it's a really kind of personal and exciting film for me because my nana was in the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, and that's where she met my granddad, and they were both in Trafalgar Square on VE night together. And so it was amazing to kind of reenact those moments, knowing that at that time in history they had been there.
Brilliant. And Luke, obviously you're taking on a dragon again in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. I got to ask you, because there was a lot of people tweeted me this morning going, ask him, is he doing anything with Bond? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Am I doing
but
anything with
James Bond?
No, nothing at all.
Nothing.
No.
Okay. Guys, thank you very much. Sequel? For
Let's
Dracula
hope.
Untold? Yeah?
Let's hope so. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
brilliant stuff. Guys, thank you very much. Continued success.
Thank you.
Luke, Sarah, loved the movie. Congratulations on it.
Thanks.
Welcome to Ireland. You're at the home of Bram Stoker. It's only around the corner. So I guess, how is this movie different from the Dracula that we all sort of knew and loathed from Bram Stoker's version?
I'll field this one.
Go on, why don't you?
It's really, it's an origin story. It's the untold story, the side of Dracula we haven't seen, and really it's about kind of pulling apart the legend and looking at the man behind the legend, and that's Luke. And really, it's about bringing this kind of human element, this humanity to Dracula, and finding what was his story before he became the monster.
This is basically the story 400 years before Bram Stoker even took his first breath.
Yeah.
So, it's a long time.
Yeah.
A long time before. But it is about the historical figure that inspired Stoker to write this very famous literary vampire.
And when you were kind of accepting the role, was there any Dracula movies in the past that you would have looked back on or, kind of been a fan of?
I've seen quite a few of them anyway, and I did go back and watch a few, but it wasn't really for reference because obviously we're telling the untold story, the origin story, which has never really been done. So it gave me quite a sort of liberating freedom and license to build a character from a historical figure and tell a story that people are not necessarily going to expect. Well, I know they're not going to expect, because the people I've already spoken to that have seen this movie leave completely surprised at the story we've told and how it unravels and how it sort of then incorporates the vampire and how he, it's his transition and what makes this man do the things he does. And it was very refreshing to do.
Because it comes across as very much like a horror movie that, but then there's actually this kind of really touching love story in the middle of it all. I mean, was that something that appealed to you when you were taking the role?
Absolutely. When I first sat down to meet with Gary, he said, there's really this love story at the heart of the film, and I thought, really? Because
he's just trying to say that just to get me to
what's
say
this guy
it.
trying to say? Because usually it's a kind of a sidebar thing in action films, and then when I screen tested with Luke, he brought all of this kind of amazing vulnerability to our scenes, and I knew in the screen test we could really create something special together with this story, and it wouldn't just be this other thing. It's going to be something that motivates the action of the film. And that's, I think, what it really does. And I think that's what makes it so touching and beautiful.
It makes you think as an audience member whether you like this person or you start questioning where your moral compass lies, because you start understanding this man's motives and the feelings that he has for his wife. I mean, they have a passionate love for each other, but it forces him to do these very dark things.
Yeah.
So you know, it's an interesting quandary for an audience member. You know, and
Absolutely, yeah.
That's what I love about the film. Watching it, you know, you're sort of plugging for him, and you're thinking, oh, I wish he hadn't done that.
Yeah, it's a strange feeling, even as a viewer when I was watching it, that you're rooting for Dracula, and it's like, no, this doesn't feel.
Oh, you should
feel
root
right.
for him. He's an anti-hero. He's no.
And Sarah, the director Gary Shore, of course, is from Ireland, and you referred to him before. I've been reading other articles as well as an early Spielberg. So I was just wondering what it was like for both of you to work with him, because this is his first feature-length movie. So I mean, what was he like?
Well, it was, you know, it's really interesting when it might have been Gary's kind of first feature film, but when you make a movie, it's kind of all of these people coming together, and everybody has these different backgrounds and different levels of experience, and it's, you know, it's not just about one person never having made a film before, because they bring their own expertise and their own kind of qualities to the project. And even though I've made a lot of movies in the past, there was so much that I learned making this movie. I'd never made a film with visual effects like this, never made a movie of this scale before, and so I really felt like, in a way, you know, we were all kind of in it together, you know, and we were all kind of moving forward, telling this story because we all really believed in it. And Gary also tends to wear a Jaws t-shirt to work every other day, which is also
Spielberg
why
reference.
he inherited that name. So,
And you filmed a lot then in Northern Ireland. I'm not sure how long you were filming there for, but did you enjoy
4
your
months.
time? 3 months?
4.
4 months, oh wow. So did you get down to Dublin at all while you were there, or did you get much travel done?
I did virtually nothing apart from train, fight, act, eat, and sleep.
Understandably.
You got to come down.
I
to
did.
lovely Dublin.
I came down to Dublin. It was lovely. It was
Oh,
great.
great. And are you going to have much time here this time round?
No, I arrived this morning and I leave tomorrow morning.
Oh, God, it's
Yeah,
all
we
good.
have a charity gala this evening, which is the first public screening premiere, official premiere we'll have in this film, and it's nice that it's happening in Dublin. You know,
Yeah,
the home
it's
of,
special.
of Bram Stoker. Even if it's not his story, it's a nice homage to such a legendary character that he
Yeah.
created. I've never heard that phrase before.
No, I've
No.
actually worked with a lot of first-time directors, so clearly I haven't heard that before.
I haven't. He was my first. I thought the phrase was never work with children or animals, which I worked with both on this film quite
Yeah.
a lot. But no, listen, Gary had a very clear vision. He'd been involved in this project for 2 years before we started shooting it, and I was involved with him with this project for a year before we started. So by the time we started shooting, we had a shorthand, and it was nice to watch him discover things about his ability as a director, and learn. And we were learning from him; he was learning from us, and it was a really interesting experience. And we had to all support each other because it was my first title role, it was his first feature film, and Sarah had to look after us both. Really.
And your first big studio movie, Sarah.
Yeah, no, it was a real kind of it was very nerve-wracking heading into the process, but it was funny because I really thought it would be very different, but ultimately, when you are working in a scene with another actor and it's all about finding them and making that connection, everything else kind of melts away, and it's really just about basic male-female relationships and kind of nothing else. So that was really kind of the special thing.
Male biting
we
female
have
relationship.
right now.
Was the big lure for both of you that this was an origin story? Would you have been as interested if it was your standard Dracula story, do you think?
I don't think I would have, no, if I'm honest. I think the world has enough Dracula movies, and brilliant Dracula movies, and some brilliant portrayals of the Dracula that Bram Stoker created. But for me, it was about telling a new story. It was putting my stamp on the origin of this most famous vampire and showing the human story, this historical figure who really did inspire Bram Stoker to write it 400 years later. So for me, it was telling an untold story, which is what drew me in.
The same for you?
I kind of wanted to make a Dracula movie.
You can. Maybe
I'm
you
a
will.
big fan of Bram Stoker's book, and there's something that is there's so much imagery in his writing, and I think that's why the story has lent itself so well to cinema over the years. And I think that every Dracula film has had its own kind of aesthetic, its own kind of visual stamp on filmmaking that's indicative of the time that it was made in film history.
Yeah.
And I think that our Dracula, we have the opportunity to do that, and I think we really did. We created this kind of visual style, this visceral experience that you get to have that's, a lot of it is based around the visual effects that exist right now in our time in filmmaking.
I think he's somehow become a kind of forgotten man with the huge resurgence of vampire stuff at the moment.
Who? Dracula? Yeah, maybe it is time for, to enlighten the cinema-going public to the creature that inspired everything that's come after him, This is a man who's basically fighting an addiction at the end of the day. When he drinks that blood, he's dealing with a real, it's like a tug of war inside of him, So you see a flawed character, which I always think is interesting to watch on screen.
Because there was always a touch in the other depictions of Dracula that he was a bit of a player, whereas he's more of a family man.
He's sexy though,
Well,
right? He's real sexy.
Undoubtedly.
I mean,
Yeah, he's
come
passionate.
on.
The dude, you're meeting the man in the prime of his life. He's a warrior prince. This is what he was famous for, respected by his enemies and loved by his people. Probably his people were very scared of him as well, because he was quite a ruthless warrior and a ruthless punisher. But, you're meeting the man, you're meeting the man as much as you're meeting the vampire. And this, the creature you just said about luring the virgin in, that's 400 years later. Maybe he will turn into that desperate, hungry, thirsty creature that can only go out in the dark, But at this point in his life, he's like 50% man and 50% vampire. So you're seeing a man just fighting for his human urges.
Well, and I think that's also the very kind of contemporary thing about our film is that it's not about a forbidden love or a love that, is unrequited. It's about passion and love that is celebrated between two people. And that's something that I really responded to in the script is that, this woman isn't being controlled or there's nothing kind of forbidden about her love.
She's definitely being controlled.
For her husband. She's, she's in love and free about it, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, and she stands by her man, when he finally shows her the real thing, the real, power that's inside of him and this darkness. She stands by her man and understands that he's doing it for them.
Is there one scary movie that completely freaked you both out?
Paranormal Activity 1. Couldn't even stay
I
in
haven't
my
seen
house.
that. I
don't,
haven't seen that.
Don't see it.
The Exorcist for me was always a big freaky. I remember when they kind of remastered it and it was in theaters and I went with my friend who were 14 and I just was inconsolable, completely freaked out.
Do not watch Paranormal Activity.
No, I
then,
don't
that's
think
for
I
sure.
will. I don't
Still
think I can.
scares me as well. Great to meet you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sarah and Luke, great to have you here in Dublin. Welcome.
Thanks.
Do you guys actually get to have a look at anything while you're here, or is it literally a flying visit?
Unfortunately, as press junkets go, this one is a flying visit to almost every city we've been to. I mean, we were lucky enough to have 10 minutes to look out of the window in Paris to see the Eiffel Tower a couple of days ago, which was quite nice, but that was about it, wasn't it?
Yeah, I brought my brother along so he could kind of go to the Guinness storehouse
Take the
for
pictures.
me and just I was like, can you just grab me a souvenir and then I'll be good. I'll bring it home.
I love it. You're
mine.
living through him. Now, you two have been part of a few of the biggest movies in the last couple of years. What's it like, though, coming on board as the leads in a film? Any nerves attached to it? Pressure?
I mean, for myself, yeah, I felt a sort of a huge sense of responsibility taking on such a famous character in the title role. But then I met Sarah, and then I felt completely at ease. She made me feel very comfortable with what I was going to have to deliver. She supported me the whole way. She's got my back, and I'd like to say I have her back too. So
No, actually, though, I feel the same way about Luke because he has a really, he has a really serious work ethic to him.
Oh, yeah.
He really just focused in and just everything kind of faded away because it was all about the work, which was really
I had no
exciting.
choice really in the
Yeah.
matter, did I?
Yeah.
It was a long shoot, and I was in
No,
every
but you know
single
what?
day.
It was you spent a lot of time, at the gym, and you were very, hardworking. But you spent just as much time working on our love story. It wasn't like this flip kind of thing. We
Yeah.
thought a lot about it, and it was something that we really cared about in the film. So it was really fun.
Yeah, because that's the thing. I went, okay, we're going to Dracula, another Dracula story. But it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't just, I want to suck your blood. It was,
Yeah.
There was more to it, wasn't there?
Yeah, and we took away the cod Transylvanian accent, which I was quite relieved about as well. But yeah, no, it is the untold story of the origins of the most famous literary vampire that was ever written about, and it's about the historical figure that inspired the whole thing, and it's about his life. And he was a leader of his people. He was a ruthless warrior, but he was also a father, a loving husband, and a respected man by his enemies and his own people. And it's an interesting story to see this man living his life, and how through his eyes you see these decisions be presented to him, and which ones he makes unfolds into the beginning of the vampiric creature we know and love.
It looked like a bit of a difficult shoot, not only the fight scenes, the costumes. And Sarah, it sounded like you thought you got away with it when you said, you know what, no corsets, I'm not doing corsets, I've just come off Belle. But then you didn't think about the crown.
No.
Why was that so painful?
Oh yeah, the crown, I forgot about that. The Nyla Dixon, who designed all of our costumes, she's a pretty big genius, and she is incredible. But she designed this crown for me, and when it arrived, it was all pearls, and it was so heavy, they created this dent in my forehead by the end of the day. But really what set the tone was on day one, we shot the Indra's handoff scene. And I'm wearing this, this long dress and this long cape, and it's this really emotional and serious scene. And I think about on the second or third take, I got out of the carriage, and I'm like, you're not gonna take my son, get out of the carriage. And I start marching up to Luke, and then I just face plants, like right in the ground. I was just like, and I kept going with the take, but I was just like, this is not going to be a walk in the park.
So it was the crown that caused you all the problems. Luke, were there any problems with you? Because your scenes were quite intense, all that fighting and biting. Any injuries?
Injury? Yeah, well, the armor gave me a lot of bruises. Armor, in history, armor was put on the knight who rallied the crowd on a horseback. He never really went into battle. He never moved very much in the armor. Unfortunately, Hollywood movies are a bit different. They want you to do all the things that people out of armor would do in the armor. So it was difficult. It was very challenging and very dangerous sometimes. There's lots of swords and they're metal, but they're not sharp. But swords don't need to be sharp to hurt. But no, it's okay. It's part of the job. You have to suck it up and get on with it.
You've both got some really exciting projects coming up. I'm really excited by your one about Princess Margaret and Princess Elizabeth at the time, and starring Jack Rayner. What can you tell us about that, Sarah?
Well, it was a delight to work with Jack Rayner, another local boy. But it's a really fun film, and it's about Princess Elizabeth and Margaret. They go out on VE night to celebrate with the people, and they actually did do that. On that evening, but our story is a bit of an embellishment and a bit of an adventure. It was a lot of fun, and it was fun to run around London and Trafalgar Square and all these amazing landmarks and kind of retell this story.
I came and visited her on set.
He did.
Did you really?
He came to visit one night.
A little bit tipsy.
I think you arrived in a rickshaw.
Well, I couldn't find a cab, so I thought I'll just get a rickshaw.
So he kind of just like rolled up to the set in a rickshaw and just kind of ran around and caused a little bit. He ran into the makeup trailer first and was like, I need hair gel.
I know the makeup artist.
Okay.
Let's just be clear.
Well, look,
I didn't just turn up and ask any other makeup. I knew who she was.
I can't let you go without asking about The Hobbit and The Crow. What can you contractually tell us?
Not a lot. The Hobbit police are in the room somewhere.
Yeah,
They're listening to every word I say. No, I mean, listen, it's the closing chapter of a very amazing experience for everybody involved. It'll be a bittersweet moment when the film finally is released in December. But it's a huge, epic finale. And my character, I can only speak for my journey in the third film, it's huge. Bard really sort of shows his true colors and gets to shine in a momentous moment in his film, in this story. So, it's great.
I'm thrilled that we get to see you in lots more and Dracula Untold. It was so much fun, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you could both sum up the movie in 5 words, what would they be?
Okay, I'm gonna do this.
All right,
first.
then.
I'm gonna take the lead here. Action, love, muscles, kissing, and mountains. How about
You
that?
pretty much just got every woman interested in the movie.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
And yourself?
Mine is Dracula Untold, The Legend is Born.
Oh, what? Did you think
cheated.
about that ahead of time?
You
I'm like
cheated.
counting on
I
my
knew that's-
fingers here.
That's 6, but I'm going to use them.
we'll let you off the hook. Because in the movie they say that vampire comes from pi, which means to drink. So I'm going to play a game with you, if that's okay. And I'm
Yeah,
going to give you some
please.
Dublin slang or words, and I want you to tell me what you think they mean.
All right.
Scarla.
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 Blood.
No, embarrassed.
Scarlet.
I'm Scarla for you.
Scarla.
Bleeding deadly.
Dangerous.
Foolish.
Good looking.
Great.
Good looking?
Hey, here's another one. If someone's a ride.
Ooh. A ride.
A ride.
Good looking.
Hey,
Right.
okay, if someone's going to a gaff.
Party?
Someone's house.
House, okay, fair enough. On the lash. You might be on the lash in a gaff.
Walking
drunk
your
in a
dog
house.
with a leash.
The next morning.
Walking your dog on a leash.
Codnia.
A fish dinner?
I'm courting you.
I'm messing with you. Story.
Story.
Tell you a story?
It's sort of like tell you a story. It's kind of like, you're like story, bud.
What's going on? What's happening?
Yeah. Here's one now. The hack of him. You'd definitely be saying the hack of him for your man, the master, in the movie.
The teeth.
No.
The face.
His face could have the hack of him.
His
Ugly.
personality.
Yeah, ugly, kind of.
But he's so handsome.
No, not him. The other guy, the master.
Oh, Charles Dance. We'll tell him who said that.
With his, obviously, with the makeup.
Yeah.
Mouldy.
Loud.
Nope.
Mouldy. Drunk.
Drunk. And the last one, the jacks. I bet you might need to go to the jacks
Like
in
worked
between
out,
this.
like
The
working out.
toilet.
The toilet.
All right. I'm bad at the
Very
game.
good.
I wanted to incorporate some Irish into this interview, but if I could get you to say something that revolves around vampires, it might work.
Right.
So I want to suck your blood, okay? But while I'm a taring the quid fulla, do you want to have a go?
Yeah. Why don't you give it to me and then I can just
Sure.
read? Oh, that doesn't even look like what you just said. but while I'm a tarig de quid falla.
Very good, very good.
Hi guys, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Not so bad. Well, listen, I was on set actually on Halloween last year, which was kind of cool, and you carved a really nice pumpkin.
That's
Which-
right.
which you
I won that. I won that night.
Did
You
you?
won that
Yeah.
night.
Yeah, our stills
yeah.
photographer, Jason Boland. Jason Boland?
Yeah.
His son, who has a brilliant name,
Oh my God.
which I've forgotten, which is terrible.
It's
But
really cute.
we got him to judge all the and I won it.
And
And
you were-
everybody thought that I'd paid him off with sweets, but I hadn't.
You were supposed to have a Halloween party. How did that go?
I did. It was a huge success.
It was the best night for me of all of our entire shoot because all of the kind of cast and crew came out and
Everybody made the effort.
all
yeah.
dressed up. Although, everyone was walking around saying fancy dress party. And I was like, why are we all dressing up really nice to go to Luke's house? I had no idea what a fancy dress.
Oh, you
meant.
didn't?
No, I had no idea.
Oh, fancy. You were
Realized-
being very literal.
realized-
Okay.
Yeah, this was a costume party.
Sure.
Oh, costume party, right.
Well, the sets on the day looked really, really amazing, but I think seeing the film, I just never imagined it was going to be quite that big as well, that it was going to be truly epic. Did you expect that when you saw the film for the first time?
Well, I mean, I knew that the story we were telling was very powerful, and it was going to be a story that people were not expecting, I think, and that's what was brilliant about it. Was when you were shooting it, you felt like this is a really deep, epic, sweeping tale of love and heartbreak and sacrifice and responsibility, and all based about this man who's fighting for what he feels is right and who he loves and what he has to do and how far he will go to look after them and save them.
On the tower scene, Gary kept saying it's gonna be a fist of bats, and it's gonna be a fist of bats, and I was like, what do you mean a fist of bats? What the heck is this fist of bats? So he's just bursting into bats, and then he hits here and his bats. And then I watched the movie and I was like, oh, right.
Yeah.
Like an actual fist of bats.
it was-
Great.
yeah. I had really sore knuckles after that day. Really sore.
Well, there's lots of firsts on this film. This is your first lead, this is your first studio film, and Gary's first feature. Did it help kind of to have so many people doing it for the first time to sort of help you through it?
Yes, I think we're all. It was a team effort, definitely. Yeah, it was a very collaborative experience for all of us, and we got on really, really well. Just we do. It's a wonderful thing because sometimes it's not always that great. So we really enjoyed our moments in the film, and we really relished them, and they were often, for me, they were the very light part of a very dark story I was telling. So it was.
I think, we really felt like we were kind of in it together, and really kind of supported each other throughout the process. And I remember when I first sat down to meet with Gary about the project, he had all of this enthusiasm and energy about making his first film, and it really kind of inspired me and really drew me to the project because he, this is a whole other take on a story that's very, very old, but he had this kind of vitality about filmmaking that I think really attracted all of us to the project.
Completely. And it's nice to find somebody to work with somebody so early on in their career, but has been given this huge opportunity to prove to not only himself but to everyone that he can do it. And we were there. We're part of it. And I felt that about my role in the film. Taking on such a famous character, and so there's a lot of things being proven to a lot of people in this film.
Well, Luke, you had a lot of huge action scenes, but Sarah, you didn't have quite so many. So would you, seeing what he went through, I suppose, with so many stunts, was something that you'd like to try?
Well, I think, Luke has such an amazing work ethic, and he really worked really hard when it came down to all of the physical things, but also the emotional work. And I think that was something that really, I really took away from the film, is that, it doesn't matter how visual the film is going to be, you have to put just as much amount of time into the kind of emotional arc of your character if you want people to invest in who you are and the story you're trying to tell. So I really took that away from the process.
Well, the sets and the visual effects and everything are huge and amazing, but one thing I really loved were the costumes. They're very detailed, and there seems to be a lot of work gone into them. Does that help to get you into a character, into the era?
Yeah, I've always said that the costume is the final layer of a character. You spend months alone with the script, creating what you feel is the role you want to tell, the story you want to tell, and the character you want to portray. And then you meet the director, and you start working the physical side of the character. And then the final layer for me is always the armor, the clothes. And in this version, it was armor, and for me it was. I remember walking out the first day in that armor, and we were up in this quarry, and it was cold, and everybody was wet and tired, and I walked out in this armor, and everybody just looked and was like, "Oh my God, there he is! That's the character," and it was a nice feeling, and especially when you're in a period, for me it always helps to completely disappear into. It
transports you, and it dictates how you're going to move and how your character carries itself, and I mean, it's always kind of when you start to see the drawings that the costume designer makes, and then when you go into hair and makeup, and you really, the two things kind of come together, and you really become a different person.
Really, really quickly, would you like to play these characters again? The ending's very cool, but there's a possibility of would you play these
I would do anything with Luke again. Really, I'd fly, I'd swim,
Ditto.
I'd be on land,
Ditto
whatever
to
you
that.
need.